out there. I'm Joni Cooper, the Director of Programming for the DocLands Documentary Film Festival, and we're really glad to see you all out there. I'm here tonight with Garrett Bradley, the Director of Time, one of my favorite films of the year. She won the Best Director for a film, a documentary directing award for the film in competition at Sundance. Congratulations, Garrett. That was so well deserved.
Thank you, Joni. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the whole festival team for putting this together and for screening the film, and to all of you guys out there for watching and joining us tonight or during the day, whenever you're watching.
Time is an incredibly sweet and timely film, and we are honored to include it in DocLands. I was pulled in so slowly to it, but I loved the slow reveal, and I think others have said that it's poetic, and I agree totally. It was just a poetic introduction and poetic throughout, and with all the elements really working in tandem, pulled in until I was completely and unequivocally in love with Fox and in love with the young men she raised, and finally in love with Robert. I actually sobbed with relief and absolute joy when we finally meet Robert.
Yeah, they're an easy family to fall in love with.
That's for sure.
I join you in that.
At its essence, Time is really about incarceration, more or less as a contemporary form of slavery. But I've never seen a film on this subject that is just so personal and intimate, which is where certainly my emotions were twigged. And my guess is all those elements didn't come all together as easily as you've made it look.
No, of course not. No, I think it was a really challenging project every step of the way. And I mean, rightfully so. It's a challenging story. And, I mean, I can kind of speak to it from many different angles. I mean, I think in the process of filming with the family, I was actively, working to manifest with them, a positive outcome, an outcome that they were fighting for, with a level of objectivity as well, with a level of distance, and with frankly an inability to really do anything but to be there as a support system. And I think that translated into shooting the film and making the film. And I think then we came up across a lot of different challenges every step of the way, not knowing that Fox's archive existed until sort of the end of filming, and that really kind of thwarting the whole vision or process that I thought I had, but in every necessary and possible way. I mean, the film is, in my opinion, it's two filmmakers who've come together to make this third film.
Now, how did you and Fox initially meet? Because she's an amazing person. And the note about that you just mentioned about not knowing about the archival footage until you were pretty much done shooting, that is astounding to me.
Yeah.
How did you begin at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, there were different ways. I mean, Gabe Rhodes, who was the editor of the film, he had a really methodical way of approaching it, which was a very different way than I probably would have approached it. And it's what made the film stronger. It's what also, I think, made me a stronger filmmaker. I think the two of us really pushed each other in great ways. And, I tend to kind of lean toward storytelling in this kind of more pure image making way, thinking more, when I was looking at the archive, thinking about some of the more formal or even visual, superficial kind of aesthetic connections that could be made between the archive and the current footage, and wanting to kind of lean into that. And I think something that Gabe was really drawn to was what it was actually saying in a more explicit sense, in terms of the emotionality, in terms of the story beats and the narrative of the film. and how do we weave these things in and out of one another and not really think about time actually to a certain extent, but really think about them all as sort of equal moments that we can build. And so I think both of us actually coming at it from these slightly different angles is ultimately what you're seeing. I just can't emphasize enough just what an amazing collaboration it was with him and with Fox, with the whole family. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I asked you two questions at the same time there. How did you connect with Fox?
Yeah. Oh, right. So I connected with Fox actually in the process of making Alone, which was a 13-minute short op doc that I had made prior. And, I had initially thought of that film as being sort of a facilitation of intergenerational conversations between women who were who were a part of incarcerated families, who Lon, in the case of Alone, was at the very sort of beginning stages of trying to figure out how to move forward with her life, knowing that her partner was awaiting trial for about 1.5 years in a private prison in northern Louisiana, and not really feeling like she had many resources to go to for guidance and for support. And so the film was actually, really going to be a way of kind of trying to bring women together to talk about how to find support with, amongst themselves. And so I contacted an organization called FLIC, Friends and Families of Louisiana's Incarcerated Children, and Gina Womack, who's the co-founder and director of that organization, picked up the phone. And she just said, the first person that you have to speak with is Fox Rich. And Fox is actually in Alone briefly for a few seconds. And so I met her in the process of making that other film. But I think partially the reason why time was even made was because I felt like I didn't want this short film. I didn't want Alone to stand as sort of like the monolithic experience or stand-in for these stories. I feel like, and I hope that many, many stories can be told from this perspective. So it felt kind of like a natural thing to do, and then getting to know Fox and getting to know her family and the specificity of her story, I think just further added to the diversity of experience within this issue, in their own way.
Yeah. And it, certainly, I mean, I assume as you've gone through this process and the process of making Alone, you've connected with a few other people, which gives you a bigger picture and a thought to what else it has to be told, because it's such so many important topics all mixed together. Yeah. And overall, working with both the archival and the current footage, I was just so impressed by how it just all melds together in a just really seamlessly. And did you have the idea to do both black and white from the beginning to help tie those together?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the aesthetic choices were kind of baked into in making Alone, and thinking about time as sort of a sister film to Alone. I already knew that we were going to work with same lenses, with this, it was going to be black and white. The angles and the approach to it were going to be the same. And so, again, just going back to what I was saying earlier, that's where I think so much of the special collaborative and learning experience was on the film was having a lot of that thwarted, in being able to work with material that I wasn't anticipating, but that was clearly needed. The universe had a bigger plan for us.
Yeah, a much bigger plan. And I'd like to talk about the music too, because to me, the choice of music just helps weave everything together and adds to that seamlessness. But also, just the choice of music, it adds that real sense of time passing. It's just so, to me, it's just so beautiful, really poetic. Where did you find the music?
Well, so the music, it's thank you for saying that, by the way. I mean, I had come across Emahoy actually through just sort of like a YouTube algorithm. It just like popped up. I had a lot of 1970s Ethiopian playlists saved on my account. And so it was the first time I'd heard that album. And it's the only album actually that Emahoy had recorded, which I believe was in 1962. And it was for the purpose of raising money for an orphanage in Ethiopia. And so Emahoy, so I was listening to the music, and I mean, the music immediately drew me in. I also felt like it had some kind of synchronicity and just immediate connection with the material, with the footage itself. But I think that once I started to read about Emahoy and about her story, you know, as a nun, as somebody who came from a wealthy family, was in Ethiopia, was a prisoner of war, was trained in classically Western music, and then went back to Ethiopia to become a nun and play music. Her kind of radical history, I thought it was a beautiful opportunity to bring these two women together and to bring these stories together. And I also felt that, you know, as we were kind of going back and forth that sometimes about, okay, do we keep it in black and white because all the archive was in color? You know, even though I had all this initial intention behind it. And it actually felt like having it in color really affected the way in which the music could be felt. And I was so committed to having the music and wanting that to be there that it also just reinforced this idea of going back to black and white and making sure that there was sort of a linearity and fluidity to the visuals that would allow us to really hold the music, you know, without it feeling too hodgepodgey.
Yeah. Well, and just how it all works together, it really, the whole thing really feels like a memory, and without any jolting back and forth in time, which can be disconcerting at times, but also the music I found just helped me sort of just feel the time slipping through Fox's fingers and through the boy's fingers. And I really loved, was it Justice or Freedom that said something about time?
Well, there's Remington and Justice. Both of them actually speak on it. Yeah.
That was just beautiful. And also even your interstitials, you know, using the clouds and in and out. It's just, to me, it was so much about time in general. And to hear you say that you weren't really thinking about that in the beginning, it's just a beautiful process to me, that how it, for me anyway, it's just so dreamlike and powerful.
Well, that means a lot. Yeah. And I love what you say about memories, because that is kind of like what we did want, you know. At a certain point, I think it was in going back and forth between time, it became really clear that like memories is a perfect word, because I think when we remember things, our bodies don't really interpret time, you know. I mean, it just becomes present. Something that could have happened a really long time ago that you think about becomes the current moment, you know, inside of you, and then informs the future to a certain extent. And so, yeah, I think we really wanted to mimic that same feeling that's evoked within the body when we remember things, you know. It's very much living in the gray area, actually, to a certain extent.
Yeah, and to feel it viscerally, really, whether they're memories that just really come up strongly. Yeah. That visceral feeling, I got that even though they weren't my memories.
Yeah.
It was well illustrated. And also the way you backed up, put everything in reverse. To me, that was really powerful too, especially the scene where you're finally, or initially, I guess, backing up from Angola.
Yeah. I mean, the Angola stuff was, you know, I feel like that is, for me, I'm still disappointed by kind of our inability to capture the magnitude of Angola, because it's, you know, I mean, it's, for those who don't know, I mean, it was made up of several different plantations that was named after the people who were enslaved from the country of Angola, and then consolidated into a single plantation, which is what the prison is. And it's 18,000 acres. And so even our drone, couldn't fully capture the magnitude of that. And I think that for me, that was very frustrating. I think that so much of the power of incarceration in our country is the inability to see it, is in keeping it seemingly intangible. And so a lot of times the only evidence that we have of it that we can see is in the family, is in the 2.3, if not double, triple that number of people who are affected on the outside. So yeah, I mean, I think those images were really important to show, but I have to say they still don't do justice to the amount of space and humanity that's being taken for this.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one. How can you? Because it is of such magnitude. It's just.
Mm-hmm.
What has Fox's reaction been to the film?
Well, we watched, Fox and Rob and a few of us watched the film before we went to Sundance, before we premiered the film. And, I think it was really emotional. I mean, Fox hadn't seen any of that footage since she shot it in the 90s.
Wow.
And, I think I try as much as possible to put myself in the shoes of those who agree to have a film made with them, and about them, that, someone might tell you what their intention is and what they're doing. And fundamentally, you really don't know until you see it, and so I was really fortunate to have her blessing, and to feel that I had done her story and the story of 2.3 million people, as she would say, justice to a certain extent. And I think for Robert, the way he talks about it is, that he has memories of these memories. We can see in the film that Fox will hand the phone, to Freedom, for instance, or to Justice, and he was there. So he was there on the other side, but he doesn't have the visuals, connected to them. And so I think that that was powerful. I think in many ways I was hoping that this could be an offering to that experience, and it wouldn't be possible without his wife, and without his family who created it. So it was pretty profound.
Yeah. And Robert's reaction, I mean, this is just, it's a priceless thing for him to have to witness in the end what his family, how they grew, and all that whole, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There must have been a whole lot of trust between you and Fox, because especially, that limo scene is just, it's sublime. It's just a wonderful scene.
Yeah.
I take it there wasn't a whole crew in the limo.
No, I mean, I knew what the plan was to a certain extent. I mean, Fox was very open about that, like what's the first thing you're going to do when he comes home, and I knew that, she knew that, everyone knew that. And yeah, I mean, it took a lot of trust for her to allow Nissa East, who was our DP, one of three of our cinematographers on the project. She sat in the car, and I remember I was driving in another car behind them, and I just said, shoot it in slow motion, because you're not going to get it any other way in a rocky SUV. And just maintain eye contact with Fox and make sure, to whatever extent isn't weird, obviously, and make sure that she'll give you the sign, and yes, I mean, 100%, it's a testament to her trust and to the collaboration that we had.
Yeah. Is there anything that you shot or wanted to shoot that you wanted to include but weren't able to for whatever reason?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would have liked to have probably spent more time with her extended family. and maybe even with the boys as well. I mean, I think by the time we were shooting, everyone was kind of out in their own world, not everyone was under the same roof at that point. But it's like, I'm even reluctant to say that, because I think that's where the archive, again, was just such a blessing and was such a spiritual asset to the whole film, you know.
Do you have a treasured moment that you'd like to think about when you think about the film?
A treasured moment. I mean, so much of the whole process was a treasure, really. Like, I mean, even in the challenges, of which there were many, and the emotional roller coaster. I mean, I feel incredibly privileged to be able to make films with people, and to be able to share them with the world. And so, I guess I'm just always grateful, and I just treasure the ability to do it. It's such a gift,
It
really.
is. And I think, I think your subjects see that in you, because they certainly open up and go along with you for the ride, basically.
Yeah.
I'm still absolutely flummoxed at how Fox raised all those boys on her own.
Mm-hmm.
That's just wild. Did she, in the film it shows, of course, that she sold cars, and her speaking engagements, were those part of what she used to bring in income as well?
Yeah. She would do like a speaking tour, to universities and to smaller groups of women, and would travel and do that. I think that there's, so many people in our country are raising children in by all means possible, and I think Fox herself would be the first one just to thank her mother for the support that Miss Peggy offered in doing that. And I think all of us in the country just deserve recognition for what we go through, for what we endure, and for what we fight through, and I think that something that we talk a lot about with Fox is that her story and who she is exceptional, but it's also universal, and I think we want to make sure we don't lose sight of that, in talking about the film, again, and thinking about how many people are sharing in this experience.
Yeah. Is she still public speaking?
Yeah, she is. I think a lot of the work that her and Robert right now are focusing on is a participatory defense initiative, which is working with families all over the country to help them gain their time back. And they do that all over the states, in Louisiana, and pretty much they have several different chapters around the country. So I think it's really right now, the focus is, now that Robert's home, how can they work together to support other families in the same cause?
And to me, it seems like they would make a wonderful couple, a wonderful way to do it with their own personal experiences. And they're both so amazing, so well spoken, so heartfelt, so open.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Yes, I did love the film a lot. I also noticed that you're slated to do a solo exhibit at MoMA starting in November, called Projects, Garrett Bradley.
Yes.
A multi-channel video installation at MoMA at November 21st to March 22nd. Now, what is your goal with that project?
Well, it's interesting. So it's actually in partnership with the Studio Museum in Harlem and the Museum of Modern Art have come together. And I've been like incredibly honored and kind of in awe of being able to work with Thelma Golden and Legacy Russell and Lanka Tattersall and Thomas Lax, and it's just an amazing group of people, and Pierre, that I'm able to collaborate with. And I don't know if I have like a goal. I mean, I think that, I think working in an installation space is less about goals and it's more about questions. It's more about inquiries and sort of presenting those, in a sort of participatory way with viewers. That installation comes off of a project called America, which exists as both a sort of single channel 30-minute short film, and then also lives as sort of a physical thing that you can move through. And I actually had initially conceived of the project as an installation piece. And because it deals with a visual chronology and thinking about American cinematic history and American history in general, and pulls from the Burt Williams film that the Museum of Modern Art found in 2003, called The Lime Kin Club Field Day, which is a film that was never finished, that was made in 1913, and is thought to be the very first feature-length film with a Black cast and integrated production. And so, I can talk about that in a sort of long-winded way, but I've been really excited to be able to make one body of work that can also exist in two different spaces and have multiple entry points for people. So I hope you'll come. If you're in New York, please come. And anyone watching, please come.
Yes, yeah. I urge anybody out there to try to get it there. There's a good chunk of time to get there, so we should be able to do it, I hope.
Yeah, me too.
What actually makes it participatory?
Well, I think that, there's, when you're watching a film, traditionally you're sitting and watching something and you're being guided through many different facets of sound, editing, camera work, performance, right? But you're in one dimension. And I think what's been exciting is like thinking about a visual chronology that people can move around, that people can be guided by not only their own curiosity, but what they're seeing is also going to change depending how tall they are, depending on where in the room they go. And so there are these completely unique entry points to the work that are just, on a physical level, not possible on two-dimensional spaces.
Oh, I understand. That's great.
Yeah.
Lots on the go. You're not wasting your time here during the COVID season.
No.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for being here with us. And I guess time will be after we're screening it on October the 8th. And then soon after that, it's going to be released on Amazon. And do you think they'll be in theater events at that point? Do you know at all?
We are going to theaters on the 9th. And then we're online on the 16th. And I think, Amazon's been amazing in really trying to find, dynamic and interesting ways of making sure the film is available in a variety of different ways throughout the country, throughout the world. So I think, we're going to be doing some fun events, well into even 2021. So come to that too.
Fabulous. Yeah. Thanks so much for taking time today, Garrett. I so appreciate it. We all do. Yes. And
very much.
We'll be keeping in touch with what happens next, what's coming next.
Thank you. I so appreciate it. I so appreciate the festival and for the viewers and the staff and everyone who's making this happen during COVID. I know it's not an easy job. So thank you.
Our pleasure. Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us.